So each one of these screens is showing what's called standard practice. So we're showing things like free range, cage free, grass fed, humane certified. But this is behind the scenes of what actually happens to these animals inside of those industries. Have you ever seen footage like this before?
No, I couldn't watch it though.
Couldn't watch it?
I stopped, yeah.
And what do you think it is that makes you feel that way?
That's an animal, it's a life.
It's a life, absolutely.
But like, I can't, because I eat meat, so it's like, this shit is hard.
Yeah. And mentioning how you were affected by the footage, safe to say that you're against animal abuse, or?
I am, but this is abuse nonetheless, so like me eating the meat doesn't help the cause.
Right. Do you think it's truly possible to be against animal abuse, but also contributing directly to it by buying the products of these industries? No, right? Yeah, so what we're promoting here tonight is animal rights in the form of veganism, which as an individual is a way of living your life excluding all animal-derived products and all forms of animal cruelty. And what do you think is like the biggest obstacle for you as an individual to stop supporting industries that abuse animals and be vegan?
Just stop eating the meat, because I don't drink milk like that, I don't do anything like that, I don't wear animal products, like it's just the meat.
Yeah.
You know?
And what do you think is like keeping you from taking that action?
I guess food. Just I love to eat and like,
enjoyment.
It's hard to eat healthy because this shit is so cheap and like you want to eat healthy but it's so expensive. You know. So
well, you mentioned the cost, and by pound, these animal products are actually more expensive. Some of the cheapest products in the supermarkets are going to be the beans, potatoes, pastas, that sort of thing. But that's more of the how. What I want to talk to you about right now is the why. Because the how is the easiest thing to figure out when you take a look through the eyes of the animals and stop focusing on a selfish outlook. But the why is the most important part, because once you've resonated with the why, everything else will fall into place. And you mentioned being satisfied by these products. So every one of us that you see here is vegan, and we didn't become vegan because we didn't like the taste of those products or we didn't get satisfied by eating those products. In fact, I would say all of us here really enjoyed those products in the same way that you do. However, the difference is each one of us recognize that our choices and our actions have a consequence. So every time you choose to buy a product from the industries that abuse animals, the consequence is exactly what you see here on the screens: animals being hacked into pieces, having their heads chopped off for a sandwich. So do you think that... You all right?
That shit is just...
Yeah, it's not easy, but there is a sort of a disconnection, and seeing that you are a consumer of these products, I think it's only fair enough that you do look at it and you do understand exactly where it's coming from. So like I was saying before, do you think that that enjoyment and satisfaction that you get from eating those products is a justification to what you're disgusted by on these screens? No, right?
That shit is crazy.
And do you know the number one benefit when you stop supporting animals and be vegan, the number one benefit of that?
You're not part of a crazy ass society.
That's actually really close. It would first be for the animals, would no longer be abused by you. But as an individual, this is really important. On an individual level, since you've told me in this conversation that you are against animal abuse and you're clearly disturbed at what you see on the screen, when you become vegan for the first time, you no longer have to be a hypocrite.
It's hard. I was vegetarian for a couple months and that shit just, my body couldn't handle it. But this shit is nuts.
You said you tried being vegetarian?
I was for like 3 months and then I stopped.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, we're not promoting vegetarianism here. Being vegetarian actually isn't good enough for the animals. But as far as trying, I'm curious to know, if you see animals being needlessly killed, would you consider that an injustice?
Yeah.
Now, would you take that same approach with any other injustice? Would you try or reduce any other form of injustice, or would you stamp it out as soon as you realize that it was wrong?
I would try to stop it, just be a vegan and just live good with myself and not have to know that I'm taking part in something like this.
Absolutely.
This shit is nuts.
Yeah, because there is no other side to animal abuse. There is no reducing it. I'm not talking to you about bigger cages. I'm speaking to you as an individual, as a consumer. And what you can do as a consumer is to no longer support the industries that do this to these animals. So it's not really about trying or giving it a shot. It's about looking at the screen, realizing that what you see is inherently wrong, and eliminating it out of your life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And some people like to get over hyper-focused on the rest of the world. But if you and I tonight don't go out and commit a violent crime, we're not gonna rid the planet of violent crime overnight. However, you and I are not contributing to it. So that's why I just wanna make a clear distinction between, the vegans that you've met here tonight and you, the non-vegan. That way you can take a look at it and adjust it accordingly.
Sir, I'm not saying it'll be easy because again, like I'm eating meat for so long, but like this shit is.
Of course. I really understand that. However, it becomes the easiest thing you've ever done when you take a look through their eyes. If you put yourself in the victim's position and then think about it again, and it will be the simplest thing you've ever done. Because obviously, like, you've had that reaction, so it's clear that you're very disturbed by this footage. So just put yourself in their position and then ask yourself that question again.
Yeah, I gotta make an actual change because they gotta be suffering. You can see it.
Mm-hmm. So now that you have seen it, you've had this really intense reaction, we're having a bit of dialogue and you're understanding the consequence of your choice. What do you think you're gonna do leaving here?
Rethink my fucking process in terms of what I eat. For sure, because I wanna be a better person, and that shit again is not. That's crazy. But like, again, like if you guys want to make an actual change, right? Me doing this personally is fine, but how would I help? Like, if I don't eat meat, that's fine, but that's not gonna stop millions of other people from not eating meat.
We can't boycott producers because the producers will never do what's right by the animals because they view them as a commodity, as an object, and as a margin of profit. The only way to stop what's happening to the animals is to break the supply chain. And how do we break the supply chain? Is by consumers like you no longer funding it. So even though you came up here and you clearly stated that you were against animal abuse, every time you vote with your dollar on one of these products, you're actually pro-animal abuse, and you're funding exactly what you're against on these screens. So just understand that until the day that you do decide to align your actions with the beliefs that you said you've had during this conversation, the animals will be abused because of you. So just decide what side of history you want to stand on when stamping out this particular injustice.
I'm definitely gonna try to stop it, for sure.
Yeah, I can tell you're really affected by this footage too. And that's honestly the most important part. Some of us have to understand the guilt. And people think that we're just on the streets shaming people. But if you fund this, like I previously mentioned, then you owe it to yourself, and more importantly, you owe it to the animals to at least see what you're contributing to. So if you're really affected by it, there's only one thing left to do.
Just be vegan, only 20%.
Just align your actions to these feelings that you're having and these beliefs that you said you had. If I gave you some more resources, would you be interested in taking some information?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to first also mention, before I give you this, that this stuff is really simple. All it takes is for you to look at the screen, be disgusted by it, and then take action accordingly. But I want to give you this as far as like some extra research. It's as simple as any Google search. I know you have a phone somewhere on you. It's as easy as that. Once you understand the why, like I said, the how is going to be the easiest part. However, I do feel like this could be beneficial for you. The best speech you'll ever hear, fantastic speech on YouTube, really going to drive home the moral imperative. Dominion is where all this footage is pulled from. So if you really want to dive into exactly what happens inside of these industries and watch it for yourself, it's free to watch. And then some of these other things are more resources as far as the how goes.
Oh, and how I can get my nutrients and shit like that.
Yeah, some of that. But like I said, that comes after the why.
Yeah.
Once you're locked in and you really resonate with why you're doing it, sure, some of these things may benefit you if you do need some resources or some more information, but that's up to you as an individual. I just want you to understand that until you're vegan, you will be funding animal abuse.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm gonna head out there.
Respect, all right? Safe travels.